Okay. Hey guys, we are live. Just wanted to really quickly introduce ourselves. We are going to be talking about basically this amazing big brand, small business conversation we've been having. Myself and TeeCee, we work together on different types of projects to help your small business start, grow, and scale. I myself am the marketing medulla, Allegra Jackson, and I love having these conversations with TeeCee because if you've been listening, and we'll be going on Clubhouse Live in a moment. We have been talking about big brands, but small business. And small business is basically essentially in America a business that has 500 or less employees. So if we look at a lot of these big brands, they still are a small business. And so we as small business owners have to take into account that at our level of growth, we are somewhere in that pot, right? We're either in the start phase, the growth phase, or the scaling phase. And so we have to look at look at the market, look at our competitors, look at other brands and how they did things, and see, how that relates to our business, because we are competing at all times, whether you like competition or not. In business, we are always competing. So I teach that in my programs. I have coaching programs. I have services that I teach my clients all of these nuances, because business is a learning tool, right? It not only helps you develop a great opportunity for you to create a legacy for your family, but it also supports you in your personal development. And so I have Ms. TeeCee here that I work with you to figure all those things out, from strategy to planning, and TeeCee supports you in implementing that process. And so TeeCee, go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll get into this conversation. So share the live, stay tuned, and get ready to ask your questions. Go ahead, TeeCee. Wait, TeeCee, I can't hear anything you're saying. Is it just me?
Okay, yeah. No, no, it's not you. It's not you. I was my was it's not you. So I was saying, right, share the life, okay? Like, comment. Now comment, when I say comment, I mean share with us what challenges you feel that as a small business you're currently facing, and your prospects as regards to scaling your business. We want to hear your thoughts, because we're literally trying to help you figure out how you're able to navigate through your current state and how you are able to scale your business. Maybe this, like myself and Allegra were saying something before we jumped on this live. All of these big brands that we see, they all started somewhere. They started somewhere. Where you are right now is most likely where they were if you are in quote a small business. And just because you are a small business doesn't necessarily mean you can't do big things. So that's basically what we are going to be dissecting. My name, as always, is TeeCee. I'm a systems implementation strategist, meaning I literally help you get that work done, right? So Allegra be like guide you, teach you. I make sure that you are able to start to do the work, right? Um, the back end of your business, your funnels, your launches, your systems, that automation, that thing that always keep you up at night, right? We get to straighten out. Okay. So to do that, you want to understand where exactly you're headed to. And that's basically why we are here. So share your thoughts in the comments and share the life. Okay. Over to you, Legger.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for breaking that down, TC, because a lot of times people are very confused by, what is being offered when they're talking about, business and marketing. And there's just so many different avenues to it. So we like to break that down in these different lives and talk about what is really happening in the real world, okay, and apply that knowledge and information over to, and TC, let me know if you can hear me on Clubhouse too, because I can't hear myself there, but I want to make sure that you can hear me on there. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that we, are talking about real life examples that are going to support you in your business, right? Because there are just, the market is always changing. Businesses are actively changing with the market. So, some of the conversations I've been having, TC, especially with, newer clients, is like, you think that your business is so different from the big businesses, the big brands, but it's not, right? Our businesses are just like the big brands. They go through the same challenges, the same process, right? We all have to build teams. We all have to implement processes and put systems in place so that our businesses are running smoothly. The gag is that businesses like the ones that we're talking about, like, Grubhub, we already covered. We're talking about Panera Bread today. These businesses have started with the one idea in mind, right? And then they've grown to these huge companies, these huge corporations. And that's not everyone's dream, but we do want to make sure that people that are listening to this story of how these companies started, and we're going to talk about Panera Bread today, that that it was just one person with an idea that never gave up, right? And as many complaints as I put out here, because TeeCee knows I love to like throw the pettiness in there every now and then, because the truth is that I like to have my cup of tea right. Like, I like my coffee made right. I like things that. So we're gonna talk about Dunkin Donuts next week, but okay, no problem. So we have Grubhub we talked about, and I talked about how I was really upset with my deliveries, okay, and how that affects other businesses that they are serving, which we found out in our last live stream that I wasn't Grubhub's customer. So of course they're not going to too much care, but they will care enough. Okay. So that's something that we discovered, because one of the things that we do in small business, and we care too much about everybody. So zoning in on the customer base and who's really like paying the big bucks is good, but don't ever forget about the little guy. Because we brought up some information and some ideas about like what can happen if you focus so much on people who are paying you right now and you leave people out of the mix that are not, because eventually those individuals are going to want to pay you. They may not be ready right now. And so we've seen a lot of those things, and we talked about a lot of those things. But today, TeeCee, I don't know if you read up on Panera Bread.
No,
But I did a lot.
before you
Go
go on,
ahead.
Allegra, hey Sandra, before you go on, while you were speaking, right, and you were talking about reasons why, as a small business owner, we need to pay attention to the history and to basically like the lineup of all of these big brands, so we're able to learn from them. I was thinking about it, and I said to myself, if you're watching this now or you are on Clubhouse, it's important that you follow through to the very end. Why? Because there's something interesting about Panera Bread. I know that Allegra is going to come with the challenges and all of those things, right? Which is good. But there's something that I want us to take, like, be very intentional about, is the fact that what we see as branding, as small businesses that blind our eyes, right? That's not basically what puts food on our tables. That's not what gives us that credit alert, those bank notifications. That's not it. Now you're going to understand what true branding is. Meaning, when you have a brand, that's what makes you unique. That's what makes your business bankable. That's what makes your business scalable, right? And I wanted to put that out there just in case you're asking yourself, so what do I learn from, Panera Bread? This is what you're going to learn. And this is something that you want to be very intentional about. So, yes, over to you, Lega. Just keep going. I wanted to put that out.
So my mic was just sticking, so I just had to unstick it. So yes, please share this, because TeeCee is absolutely correct. We definitely are learning through our business building process, right? And this is not something that just naturally comes to us, because no one teaches you how to build a business, right? Naturally, like, you have to go out and seek that knowledge. And one of the things that I've learned through just like looking at the back end of these businesses, and also like having conversations with their customer service and talking to even them, like, what's going on with the company. And I've actually created a lot of relationships with people within these companies that sometimes, they'll give you the scoop. Like, they'll tell you, like, one of the things that we're going to get into, and this is why we want you to listen throughout these series, is because eventually we'll go into the technology space and all these other areas we work in. But, some of these companies that are big brands, they when I call, they know my name. They're like, oh, Miss Jackson. Okay, got you. Mostly because they have a reporting system on the back end that shows in every department who's calling, who's the person having the most complaints, right? And companies that care about you, they want to make sure that you're good if you're paying the money. And one of the things that I know is that these larger brands are definitely experiencing the same troubles that we are experiencing as a small business, because we're both small businesses, right? And they're finding solutions. That is the difference. The difference is these companies like Panera Bread and, Dunkin Donuts and the Grubhubs, right? They're finding the solutions and they're getting to their goals. That's the difference. And they're doing it with and it's not with minimal risk, right? A lot of the things that we're scared to do in our businesses hold us back from actually making the things that we want. And so this is why we're having these conversations. When I talk about Panera Bread, I want to go to this real quick because TeeCee, I don't know if you looked at the history of where Panera Bread started, but it started with like one lady, from what I understand, right? So it talks about it growing from this like really small cookie store to sorry y'all, hold on a second. So it started from this like really small cookie store and it turned into like a major brand, right? In the fast-paced dining sector. Y'all know what that is, like fast food. But we like if you've never seen a Panera Bread before, right, this is why I'm explaining this, because they have these like fresh baked items. They have like sandwiches, they have soups, they have coffee, they have tea, they have like these, now they've incorporated like these flatbreads. And so Panera Bread, for me, I remember my first experience there, I was like, oh my God, they freshly bake their bread. Sold, right? So I was sold on the actual the core value and the concept of the brand, right? Like they don't just serve you, bagels and muffins and stuff. They actually make it right there in house. They also had a kind of like a initiative to it where they donated their bread to charities and things like that. So that's what I knew. And so that's a little bit of what I experienced with Panera Bread as far as this brand. But the history of it, when I read up, was talking about early on in 1976, where this lady, her name was Louise Kane, and she purchases a small cookie store called Cookie Jar in Boston. And she, worked that concept, and then she changed the name to Au Bon Pain, which means from good bread. Okay, and that's in French. So Au Bon Pain means from good bread, and they focused on like bakery and cafe items. So somewhere along the way, from 1976 to like the 1980s, she basically was just building her brand, and she started off with just a cookie store. So Panera Bread, as big as it is now as a chain, it was a cookie store. And when she expanded in 1981, because she changed the name and she actually started focusing more on, bakery items and cafe items. And the reason why I think that it's so important to know about that happened as far as her change is because sometimes in business I think about this, TeeCee, and I want to hear about, before I go to the next part of the history, I want to hear about this part and what you think about it. Sometimes we are scared to change what we're doing in our business because we feel like, oh well, that's how I started, I don't want to switch, I don't want to change, I don't want to do anything. And she didn't take what she was doing and change the brand. She didn't change the entire business, right? She did change the name, right? And then she changed and then she's focused. So she didn't even say she got rid of her cookies, right? Because she might have had people there already buying it, loving it, right? But in order to really grow as a brand, you have to kind of expand your what we call a product line. So if you have cookies, and you see people in the market are like, yeah, I like fresh baked items. Well, maybe you might want to start focusing on fresh baked items. And maybe you don't necessarily like making fresh baked items, but if your fresh baked items is something that that market needs and they already love coming to your cookie store, why not, right? And that's exactly what I believe she did. And I didn't dig so deep to even know her more, but I will. But I'm gonna tell you, this lady started Panera Bread with a cookie store called Cookie Jar, and decided that there was more in the market for expansion and made that move. And then in the 1980s, she definitely made a different change. But what do you think about that, TeeCee? Because I do feel like sometimes making that shift in our business or adding things that we normally didn't start off with or didn't think about, it actually allows you to see where you may not have thought of, something that was good for the market, but now you're trying it out and you see that, boom, I just made $1,000 today, right? And I've seen that happen, but I want to hear what your view on that is.
No, I mean, you're right. You're right in the sense that, um, the goal for every business is progress, growth, um, is our ability to actually scale, our ability to grow, our ability to move to that next level, right? That at the end of the day, that's the goal, right? At the end of the day, that's the goal. I think I see your hands up, Allegra. Are you going to say?
I, no, I was saying hi to Sandra. Sandra is in the room on Clubhouse, so I
Oh,
was
okay.
just saying hi to her.
Oh, okay, okay. So I was saying, right, that at the end of the day, the whole idea is for us to grow, for us to see, because the truth is, where there is no growth in a business, that's no longer, I don't see that as anything. It's no longer a business, it's something else. That's my opinion, right? And so the fact that she was able to, or rather every single time she's looking for better ways to be able to connect with her audience. I mean, I believe that because she made that switch, which was obviously might be a scary switch, right? Because most times as business owners, especially, most of the time we come from a place of either passion or desperation, right? Most of the very big brands that we know, it's either they're coming from a space of, passion, or we are coming from the space of, it's always an intense emotion around where we are started, right? However, as we move in, especially for people who are very into their business, in love with their business, you need to understand that your business is no longer about what you like, what you don't like. So, for example, she loves the cookies, right? Maybe the people love the cookies. But the truth is, as we grow, right, markets grows, the trend grows. And I realized that your audience, their preferences, not because they don't like, obviously, not because I don't like cookies, but I want something different because our taste also love diversity. That's the thing with consumables, right? We love that diversity. And so if we continue to maybe nibble on something without that little change, even in any other business, we tend to feel like there's something different. And so we want to go test other places because we love excitement. Now, I feel like it was a bold step, but a bit scary um, for her to do that switch. And it is normal if right now in your business, it's not because you're not making money. It is because you need to scale, you need to grow. Because you can't be, this is where you are, maybe December 2023. You shouldn't be where you were December 2023. You're still there now. No, it doesn't tell well about you. It doesn't tell well about the business. There's something wrong. So you want to move. And most times, that shift can be really scary. My point is, it is okay if you feel scared to try out something else, right? Because I wouldn't necessarily say unfortunately, but funny enough, for us to be able to get to that space of legacy building, say to ourselves, this business is bankable, this business is sustainable. We want to keep making sure that we are top of our games, right? So I feel to your question that yes, it can be scary. Yes, it is okay to feel scared, right? It is not out of place. And yes, even with the whole emotions, you still want to try it out. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to work because imagine if she had tried out that freshly baked stuff and all of it, but it didn't work out, right? She will be like, oh my gosh, all of it. And that's why you need somebody like Allegra, for example, that would help you with the back, support and research and all of those, little things in your business that you might end up missing out on, so that you are not making decisions based on um, you're not making decisions based on what I think. You're making decisions based on, okay, you know what? If I'm going to try out something new, it should be based on data. It should be based on certain tests, right? That is a strategy for you to move to that next level, right? So personally, right, I'm just trying to get us. We're going to talk about Panera Bread, but I still want us to see ourselves in their brand and try to picture, okay, you know what? How does this concern me? How does this concern my growth as a business owner, right? I want us to, as Allegra is hitting on all of these parts, put yourself in the picture, right? Put your business in this picture and see where you're headed to. Go on, Allegra.
Yeah. Shout out to Sandra. She joined us. She said we need to consistently be growing by learning or pivoting. Absolutely. Um, yeah, it does sound better here. Thank you, Sandra. We try different multi-channel platforms at sometimes just to test things out. We love that. But we've been, kind of seeing how many channels we can hit all at once, and we're going to continuously do that. Thank you for joining us, though, because some of the things that we're talking about are real. To your point, TeeCee, I think that we constantly forget that we are that brand. We constantly forget that, just like that we described, someone started with the Panera Bread brand with just a cookie. Started this freaking thing with a cookie, and they wanted to make cookies. But then that idea took off when, she decided to be open to saying, well, we can add pastries. And then, I thought it was so interesting to know that she even changed the name. And this is one of the things that I realized, that through the journey of entrepreneurship, one of the things that get us stuck a lot is not wanting to change. And the only constant that I see in business is change. Every single day, you are going to see change. This is why I talk about, with my clients especially, about how to go from that 9 to 5 mentality to CEO mindset. Because if you are still stuck in like, okay, I like going to the same job every day, I like doing the same work, I like the same hours, I like the same lunch, right? If you have that mindset for so many years, when you go into business, it's hard to shake off, because you're so involved in this constant habit of like, okay, this is what I do every day. So you don't magically get the notion to just, okay, now I can just be flexible. You have to teach yourself and train yourself to be in that mindset. And so that's why we even have these conversations, so you can start thinking about that. Like, am I constantly growing and pivoting, like Sandra's saying? Am I looking at, the business, and am I allowing it to grow, or am I keeping it stagnant because I want to just make cookies? And so I think I love the fact that we can say that. And when I look at my brand, I can tell you that, there was a time in the beginning of my business where I felt like I'm just a small business. Like, I don't need to do all that. I don't need to, set all that up. Right. And I remember feeling like that, because honestly, the truth was, I just wasn't ready. Like, I just wasn't ready. I was like, that's a lot. That's a lot to do. I'm not comfortable doing that yet. So, and I think that's, for the most part, what we have to look at. Like, how flexible are we to do what the business needs and not what we want, right? Because I can tell you for a fact, every business that I've started, as soon as it landed on its feet, it took off. So, I'm running after it, not like, not like, oh, let me stop this. Let me just pause, right? Because at any time, a pause can be dead weight. It could be like, it could turn into depression. Sometimes people stop their business and it turns into depression. Sometimes people pause their marketing strategy and it turns into overwhelm, because you were supposed to do what you were supposed to do. So there's just so many things here, but I want to congratulate Panera Bread for starting off with just a cookie company. It sure is from employee now being an owner. Yeah, it's different. It's very different. When I go to the 1981 expansion, so after Louis Kane started this company, shout out to Louis, right? like Lois Lane, but Lois Kane. That is so cool, y'all. I don't even know what to say. I would have been like Lois Kane cookies. But she basically started it in 1981, which was a year before I was born. Jesus. She expanded, and Ron Satch, whoever he is, right? We didn't dig this deep, but we will eventually. But Ron Satch joins her, and they begin expanding Au Bon Pain into a chain and establishing its presence in shopping malls and urban centers. Y'all, listen. Do y'all remember Au Bon Pain? Like, let me stop here. Let me just stop right here. Do y'all remember Au Bon Pain? Because I remember Au Bon Pain. I remember Au Bon Pain. I remember it. So I'm really curious as to see where this story leads, y'all. Because TeeCee, do you remember Au Bon Pain? Was that in your state, in your country? Oh, y'all, listen. This is crazy because I've worked in so many different capacities. Okay, well, listen, this is crazy to me because I feel like I'm seeing clearly now, right? Like, oh wait, that was Au Bon Pain, right? So listen, Au Bon Pain, I remember that name, so that's very familiar. So if you know Au Bon Pain, and if you, oh, you remember it, Sandra? Okay, was it a northern thing or something? Like, we got to figure out some more of this. Okay, so Panera Bread like was started by like Au Bon Pain used to be the beginnings of Panera Bread. So those of y'all who remember Au Bon Pain back in the day and didn't know it was associated with Panera Bread, you just got some new knowledge. Boom, right there. Okay, so let's go over to 1981 expansion. Au Bon Pain, Co. in 19 so they took from 1981 their expansion in 1981 and they put it in shopping malls and urban centers. That's where Au Bon Pain was. And I remember seeing that name because I was born a year after they expanded. And then they formed Panera Bread in 1993. So what is that, 11 years later? 12 years later. So 12 years after their expansion, they decided to do the acquisition. And see, okay, I got to stop here. Because years.
So I'm checking that out, and apparently I think somebody else bought that name.
Okay. Acquisition. Okay, acquisition, right? Okay, Sandra said yes in the malls. Okay, so Sandra had the bread. She said it was good. Hey, Wendy. Wendy's on Clubhouse. I said, we're talking about this rise of Panera Bread, and it's funny because it started out with a woman. Okay, Lois Kane, not Lois Lane. Okay, Lois Kane. And then get this, a man came in and supported her, honey. He saw the value in that thing. He was like, okay, Lois, let me go ahead and invest in you, and we're going to go ahead and expand this thing. So this is why I feel like a lot of times we have to keep going and fulfill your dreams, because people are always watching you. Always. Like, people are always watching you. And I've heard so many stories, even, with companies I've worked with before, I mean, just hearing all these amazing stories of people that just were resilient and never gave up. And all of a sudden, boom, right? Someone shows up. So I look at this and I say, well, hold on, I got to go back to this. So they had acquisition in 93. So 12 years after they expanded, that means they had to do the work in shopping malls and urban centers and run that Au Bon Pain company and all of those different departments and areas. So some of us are just running one business, right? So before you expand, clearly she took time to master that thing. Because I don't think Ron Cinch would have been like, oh, let me go ahead and expand this mess. Like, let me take what you got. And, because some of us are really stuck with getting to organize what we already have, right? Like if you look at some of the back ends that I see, TeeCee looks at some back ends too. And it's like, at this point, I can tell you what's going on in your back end without even looking at it, because I see so much of it, right? Like I don't know if you can do that, TC, but I can literally look at someone's social media, their website, and what they're doing in the market as far as like anything I see on Google, and I can tell just by that what the back end looks like. That's crazy to me. So it just shows that a lot of us are starting businesses and we don't necessarily know how to build them, right? We know how to, we know what we see. We see social media, we see people, other people doing things, but you have to know what it means for you to run that business and based off of your plan, right? And so that's why we go through that process of thinking like, what is it that I really want for my business? What kind of impact do I want to make in the world? And so this is interesting because this lady had this bag, this in the bag. So
You know,
go ahead, TC.
yeah. So I'm loving this other side of the story, right? Because I can see smart work here. Now, that's why I love it every time you're talking about, okay, let's think future, let's think what's going to happen next. Imagine if she was thinking now, right? Okay, I just want to make the money now. Trust me, this smart move wouldn't have made any sense. So apparently, right, the urban pond actually had, so it was like two, she divided the business, right, sold a part of it, and then the remaining part was what she nurtured into that Panera Bread. Now that's smart, and then you're thinking to yourself, how is she able to do that? That's because it's not about the size, it's the structure she's put in place for her to know that, okay, you know what, I can divide this business into two. You know what, y'all take this part, take the name, I'm going to give this other part another name, and I'm going to work it. Like, that's so smart. And I'm thinking that from the money she got from selling this part, she was able to then use this in expanding, like, for the first early years before she started to franchise. Oh my gosh, like, this is so good. Like, that's what we're talking about.
Wendy asked what platform are we on. Wendy, we're on all of our live streams on Facebook, Instagram, and I'm sorry, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So just tune in
LinkedIn.
on myself channel here on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Allegra Jackson CEO, TC. TC Business Solutions. What is it? TC Okore. Is
Just
it
don't stress yourself. Just look for TC. You see it.
TC has such a unique name. But yeah, TC, I think just as we're talking about this, it's really interesting because you're right. You have to, you have to be so bold about yourself and so bold about your business and what you're willing to do. You know what I'm saying? Not to be like, because I think sometimes we get so close-minded about it that we're like, okay, well, I don't really want to expand, or I don't really want to do that. And it's like, okay, well, why not? Because, there's no limitation. So, if you're limiting yourself to, continue to work on that business and go through those challenges, right? So you can see that thing grow. Because anything you put your mind to, anything you put your effort in, like, you're good at done. Like, we've proven that. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen women, like, when we want something done, it gets done, right? And so the same energy when it comes down to your business, right? Like, if you want to get it done, you're going to get it done. So we have to kind of ignite that fire in us and find out, where that is. For Lois Kane, I don't know the ins and outs of what she experienced, but for whatever she did for that time, Ron Satch came in and he saw what she was doing, and he obviously had some things in place already because he came in expansion phase. He didn't come in when she was building. He didn't come in when she was like, "Oh, let me make these cookie dough right. Let me change this name over to this and add the French." Now he may have been around the vineyard, but she created sustainable measures by making decisions in her business to include other people so she can expand. And this is one of the things that I always work with my clients about too. And I'm saying, because some of the biggest fears about business for some people is they don't want nobody in it, right? Like, I don't want them to see all that. Like, I don't need them to look at my back end. I don't want them to look at the sales. I don't want them to look at my paperwork. I don't want them to see how messy it looks. But the truth is that it always looks messy, right? Like, while you're in the building phase, and I remember getting this from I don't know if it was a mentor I was listening to or a coach, but I was like, that is so true. Because whenever you're working on something, like if a doctor is working in surgery, right, it never looks good when they have your body open, wide open, right? Like you're just like getting worked on. But through surgery, that process is really deep and nasty. But once you get all the
Yeah.
things fixed and you put the body together, now you have this beautiful, result, and you can, go further with it. And so that's what we do. Like, we don't stay sick in business, we just work on the things. And so we have to be able to include people to help us do that, right, to help us build those intricate parts of our business. And so that's why some of us will do things like what I did, y'all, and I tell y'all all the time: start an internship program. Okay, start teaching people how to do what you already know how to do, and then have them do it, and then start doing more. Okay, but you have to learn how to do that. So you definitely can, always connect with myself and TeeCee for these type of things that we're talking about, because we support you in this. We'll never talk about anything that we don't support you. But I'm gonna tell you, she had to have had something in place in her mind to say,
True.
I'm going to go the distance, right? So I want to hear also too, because this expansion came from, and for those of you who joined us on, hey Patricia, hey, Hadi. We're just talking about the rise of Panera Bread because it started out with Lois Kane. And I love her name because I feel like it's like Lois Lane and it has a twist to it. But this whole process of her starting it with a cookie company called Cookie Jar, and then expanding it when she changed the name to Au Bon Pain, and somebody said they remembered that. And now, we're looking at, the acquisition phase in 93, where Au Bon Pain now is big enough to acquire another bread company. Oh my God. Like, now it's not just a small company with one person. Now she has people with her, and they are now going out and making moves so that they can expand and acquire. This is big, because sometimes, we can't even see past, the sale. Like before you actually get to, building your team, a lot of times people want to feel confident in the sale first. And I want to say right now, you do not have to have any sales to build your team. I literally did this 3 times. I've built teams without it paying them a dime. There's value in knowledge. There's value in getting that work done. And if you find the people who find value in that, it's the same way you find people who find value in your products and services. So if you can't sell your business to someone to work with you as a team, then it's just as hard selling your business to someone who has no clue of what you have, and now you're pitching them a product or service. Either way, you're going to have to work on building that relationship. And so, when I think about this acquisition, I'm like, okay, so they not only covered the shopping malls and, all these places. Now they're like, okay, we're going to start buying other companies because we want to knock you out of the market. And that's usually a huge component to growth and scalability, because you're now taking your competitor out. Like, we don't even want you to sell in our market no more. We're just going to buy all 20. And this is exactly what they did. They bought all 20 bakery cafes in the St. Louis area from St. Louis Bread Company. They just bought them all. They just say, you know what, don't worry about it. We got it. And when you are in a position where you got it, and this is where I'm going to stop, TeeCee, because we're going to go way over time if we keep talking. And I'm packing to take a little bit of mini vacay, y'all. I don't want to get burned out. I want to make sure I'm 100% for y'all. But I want to say, TeeCee knows, and when I feel it coming, I'm like, oh, I'm out. But it's only to get back to business, because when I think about this part, right? Like, a lot of us don't even get to that part of thinking about expansion, right? In the business planning process when I work with my clients or even prospects, it's like I always talk about that part of where you're going in the future. And TeeCee, you said it. Like, think about the end before you start at the beginning. Think about, where do you want to be? Because I'm sure that in order for her to make a decision to add people to her team to expand, she had to already have in mind, I want to be bigger than this. But we always, kind of look at ourselves as a, one person. And I hear it all the time. I'm a solopreneur. And I mean, it's great. We're all starting out as solopreneurs, but do you want to grow from there? Right? That's the question. because some people don't want to grow. Some people are like, I'm good. I don't want none of that. I don't want to hire no one. I don't want to work with no one. I just like this little side hustle. But there's so much more in the growth area when it comes to growing your business, because now you're learning how to delegate and manage and get outside of yourself and grow as a person, to learn how to even communicate more effectively, you know. And I think that is so important. So with that, TC, I want to ask you about this part, because Panera Bread has a long history, and I'm only in 93, baby. Like, they took over these 20 chains, and then they expanded and transformed. And then they had a rapid expansion in the 2000s, where they actually, and what happened in 99, they did a divestment where Aubon Pond sells its Aubon Pond division to focus on Panera Bread, because before that, they did a rebranding. Okay. So they took the St. Louis Bread Company. They did a whole like focus on upscaling and doing like this fast casual dining experience. So in 93, they're just like, okay, we're gonna expand, we're gonna grow. But then in 97, they're like, oh, we're doing really good. And we bought these 20 chains. We're gonna rebrand, we're gonna refocus. And they actually did exactly that by taking the company, and they rebranded as Panera Bread. And they had and guess what? They tested and refined the concept. Before they rebranded, they did study after study after study after study. They made sure that they knew enough about their market and enough about the people that they were already serving, that they were able to change the dynamics of their consumer base and what they were doing in the market. So in 99, when they had the divestment, which like Aubon Pond Co., it sells Aubon Pond division to focus only on Panera Bread. And it actually officially changed its name to Panera Bread Company. So I want to stop there, because everything else you guys can look up for yourselves. But TC, I really, this is one of the best for me. This is one of the best situations. I love looking at these brands and saying, where did they come from and where are they now? Because some of the things that I've complained about to TC about Panera Bread really like disheartened me. I was like, what is going on? I love Panera Bread, and why is it acting like this? But just because you're experiencing one thing at one store, right? When your company is that big, we're realizing that it's actually about the overall brand that you're really, really sold on. And I've been sold on Panera Bread since day one. So even TC and I have conversations where I'm like, man, I had a bad experience, but I'm gonna still go back and buy. Right? I'm gonna still go buy another, and I won't explain what happened, because I don't want to throw y'all off of this conversation. But TC, let's end here and let's talk about what is it that you think, really is, what are you getting out of that part where I talk about, the divestment of like changing over and rebranding and refocusing, because that really me.
So refocusing, rebranding is good, right? However, um, going through how they had to get it done, I feel like sometimes we forget where we're coming from, and we forget the people that support us. We forget the people who are stuck up on our brands, right? Right now, Panera Bread is not necessarily, the core focus of Panera Bread is not necessarily me or Allegra. It is, I want to scale, I want to franchise. Now, if you notice, their core right now is franchising. Now, franchising means, oh, I'm going to see this up and coming bakery doing really well. I'm going to go to them, I'm going to buy their stuff and then get you so they're able to use my formula and blah blah blah. So the focus right now has left from, because the brand that we are sold to, the brand in which these people are literally leveraging on, and I don't want to use the word exploiting, but that's the core of what they're leveraging, is freshly baked, bread, ingredients natural, blah blah blah, and all of those great stuff, right? Now they're touching us in that aspect that in our heads, we're still trusting that they are very conscious about our health. They're very conscious about, giving us premium and all of that. But the truth is their focus still on us? That's the question. Is their focus still on us? Is their focus still on their consumers? Personally, I would say the answer is no. The focus right now is not necessarily on the consumers. It is the focus is on those, people they're going to go. That's how they're expanding. That's how they are making their money. Right now, how does this affect myself as a business owner? How does this affect you as a business owner? Now, this is not to tell you that, oh, they are crappy, don't go buy from them, don't go do this. No. Even if we say from now to tomorrow, if you're somebody like myself or Allegra, you would still complain and you would still go back and go buy. Why? Because you're stuck up on the brand. It's the same way we say, oh, you know what? There's just some people that we can't be upset with. There's some artists, some singers that even if they come here now and sing something that we do not understand, we're like, what's this rubbish? We're still listening. What's this? I need to play it on YouTube and I need to listen. It's so crappy. And then you talk about it and you do this. Listen, you are increasing the number of streams. You're listening to it and listening to it and listening. Before you know what's happening, you're caught up. Like literally, you're not sold, but I just like them. Maybe then you give them 1,001 excuses as to why they are doing that. It's the same thing with your Panera Bread right now. Right now, even if they do something, maybe the bread is supposed to be freshly baked, but maybe the spots where you got it from were not able to sell off yesterday's bread, and they decide to, oh, we're already on the brand, blah blah blah, and then tomorrow they pass it on to tomorrow's bread, and then you buy it and be like, this is not freshly bread. The next tomorrow you will still go back there because your mind is telling you that it's freshly baked, and then you taste it, like, then you give them 1,000 reasons, excuses. Right now, two things I want to tell you as a business owner: do not compromise. Do not try to manage. Do not try to compromise. Do not try to say, oh, I'm going to save money. No. When it comes down to your branding, you want to be very intentional. And branding, if you watch right now, myself and Allegra never said anything about logos. We're not bothered about, is it the logo you're buying, Allegra? Are you stuck up with the logo? No. We're not stuck up with. I mean, the Panera Bread has gone through several stages, but we're stuck up about the brand. The brand is, freshly baked. The brand is okay. They think about my health. The brand is this. That's it. Now we want to take our time, invest in making sure that the structure is pulling through for us. Our brand is very stable, so that if tomorrow for some reason I come work with you, and obviously I'm not working directly with you because you franchise so many of you already, and then I'm working with a part of you, and then I'm like, okay, maybe, just maybe the coffee, maybe they made a mistake and didn't really put maybe they didn't, you just give 1,001 reasons. Right now, my point is two things I'm going to say to you before we close from my end. Take close attention, okay, to your branding, because their branding is strong, and that's why they are able to escape from all of this. I will call them very important things, right? One. Two, ensure that your growth mindset is intact. Now, what I mean your growth mindset being intact is because you're not going to start to think of growth when you're 10 years into your business. You start to think of growth when you're just getting started. Planning towards growth starts from now. Putting that structure. See, it is very difficult to put structure in your business when you're already deep into it. It's very difficult, like it's hard. Now, the best way for you to play that trick
Yep.
is to start from day one, to start to document those processes, get organized those processes, structure what you need to structure, play around with your data, do all of the things you want to do now. I know wait till you're 2 years and you're thinking you're making all the money and then you're ready, you will get frustrated. I'll stop there. Let's think about that. Allegra? We need Allegra to
Thanks
go
for the
go
whooping,
back,
TeeCee.
okay?
Yeah, well, I listen. I love these conversations, so it never feels like work to me. But we do have to end because we don't want to overexhaust this time for you. Thank you for sticking around. Anandra Hadi, Run Hadi. I hope I said it right. Oh God, I hate messing up names, but thank you so much for being here. And for those of you who tuned in to the live channel, Sandra, and I saw Wendy in there. And we love questions too. So always ask your questions or make comments. We love that. But everything you're saying, TeeCee, is right, because as I'm thinking about big brands, it just kind of reminds me nobody is nobody's always out of the red, right? Like at certain points of times as a business, you're always going to see yourself go, downwards, and you're like, okay, I got to pick myself back up, whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, whether you're losing staff, whether you're losing inventory, whether someone like stole from you. Like there's all kinds of things that happen in business that you have to pick back up from. So it's really important to understand that every great brand goes through the same things we go through as a small business owner, but their thought process is so intentional about how they're putting their brand out there. There's three different ways that people look at brands, which is like there's the brand, there's branding, and then there's your branding elements. And I talk about this with my clients too, because there's a difference between the three, right? Your branding elements is what TeeCee's talking about, like your logo and your typography and your fonts and all these, different shapes and designs that people see when they see your company. They're like, oh, I know that. That's McDonald's. That's Burger King. That's, they know because they can literally identify by seeing the colors and the logo. But there's the branding, which is you actually creating that stuff and putting it out there in the market. And a lot of times you take your branding elements and you're, utilizing that branding strategy. So people feel really good about that part, right? People are like, oh man, like my logo looks good and this looks good. And, I'm putting it on flyers and I have it on my website, right? So, all the pretty stuff. But then the brand is really how people feel about you. And that's something you cannot control. So when, and that's something I always want to make clear to people, because sometimes we get so caught up in, those imagery and the things that we see, but we forget about the intentionality behind the brand itself, because people are going to notice how you make them feel. So when they see your brand, depending on the experience they're having, right? Like TeeCee said, you say you make fresh bread, but it tastes like cardboard. That's what they think about your brand. Okay, they're like, that is not a good experience, right? So your logo may look really pretty, but every time they see it, they're going to feel bad because they're like, ugh, that cardboard bread. So when we're talking about your brand, this is why we go so deep into planning your process very intentionally and doing it from your own ideas and not someone else's. Because when you start to look at the things that TeeCee's even talking about, like branding yourself and having your branding elements, is something we can support you in, but you have to maintain that brand. That means that when you go out there and you advertise and you promote, you have to have the right attitude. You have to teach people how to know how your brand behaves. Like if you hire people, don't let them do whatever in your business. They have to make the same fresh bread that the other employee made, that you made, right? And this is why if you ever work in fast food, or if you ever work in any food industry, right, any hospitality, they're going to always, like, structured properly, they should always have an ingredients book. Like, so whenever you work at establishment and they serve food and they don't have an ingredients book, get very worried, because that means that this one person can make the bread this way and then the other person makes it their own way, right? So that's part of the brand as well. And I want to mention this before we get out of here, because when TeeCee talked about Panera Bread and what their brand really stands for, which is quality food, right? And welcoming atmosphere, because I shared with TeeCee before that I used Panera Bread as my second office when I had my first business. That was no joke for me, because it helped me build on my business. Panera Bread is not just a part of me as far as like, oh, they got fresh bread and they got good food and good coffee, right? Like that's not it. That's not just it. It was the atmosphere, it was the environment, the music, the sitting in the booths, the having meetings with my clients, the building my team there, right? That experience was created as a casual fast dining experience, but that was unique to the customer. They were thinking about people like me, right? They were like, they need a place where they can sit down and actually enjoy their bread. And you can tell within the process that they created it. So they always use quality ingredients, right? And that's big because a lot of times, when you have people that are looking for, like, they're health conscious consumers, right? You don't necessarily have to say, I'm a healthy food place, right? Panera never goes and says, oh, well, if you're a fitness guru, if you're about health, come here and eat our bread. They don't ever say that. They just say they serve fresh bread. And so people who look into that and have a desire for that, that's a key word for them, right? Okay, let me see what that is, because a lot of times people, when I see people working out, they're going in Panera Bread getting their bread because they need those carbs, right? And they don't want any of those additives in there and things like that and preservatives, so they don't use any of those. They only use fresh ingredients. They're committed to it. That's actually one of their core values, their commitment to clean ingredients. And then they also use artisanal bread, right? Like, we talk about branding, and when you think about it, this is something that I thought was really funny, TeeCee. When I talked to Dunkin Donuts and I was like, well, I didn't order a Frappuccino, and they were like, we are not Starbucks. And I laughed because they were so pissed that I called their cold iced coffee a Frappuccino instead of, an iced coffee or whatever they call it, because that's a Starbucks brand name. That's not a all over thing. You don't go all over and ask every place for a Frappuccino, right? You go to places that actually label it like that. Same thing where, and this is just one example because other people may call it Frappuccino, but Dunkin Donuts don't play that, okay? And another thing that happened was, and we're going to talk about Dunkin Donuts next week. So y'all make sure y'all tune in for that because that's going to be real interesting, okay? But I'm telling you that it's so funny that I will go to the companies and I will ask for certain things. Like Starbucks is the same thing. Like, if I say something wrong, but I also made a mistake and said, yeah, let me get a venti. And they're like, venti? Like, that's Starbucks. Like, they get pissed off because they know that that's their brand, And so, there are so many things in our brands we can learn from these companies. There are branding opportunities for you to add music that's only customized to your brand, that when people hear that sound, hear that music, they know it's you, right? One of my favorite places, what is it? Is it Abercrombie Fitch or is it the other place? I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of the places, and y'all put it in the comments if y'all know what I'm talking about. But you walk in the store and they actually have a fragrance that's custom to their store. It's a clothing store. And it's literally like you go in there, you smell the fragrance, you're like, oh, I know where I'm at. So some people actually have fragrances that when you smell it, you know exactly what the brand is, right? And so we want you to look at that. Look at your own brand. Look at your own company. See what it is that you're doing to provide value, right? We talked about Panera Bread, and it's not just a bread company. Even though it says a bread company, it's not a bread company. It's a company of convenience. It's a company of consistency and reliability. It's a company that has brand value. We just talked about that, right? And they're innovative. They use quality ingredients and they're innovative. So
That's
I
what you
wanted
said.
to
It's
end there because, if you're not, that's it. So look at your company, look at where you're at and see where you need to tweak and work on these things. And I promise you, you'll find that you'll be like, dang, you know what, I could work on that. And I could, and some of those things are really what's holding a lot of people back from buying from you, because everything can be a pretty picture, but people know when you care about them. They know when you're offering them a product or service that's going to really support them. They can feel that. And so start working on these offerings and these things that we're saying, Panera Bread has done. They look like a big company, but I just told y'all it started out with Lois Kane. So, we have to look at where we want to grow, look at the end, and start right here at the beginning and go from there. Contact me and TeeCee if you need help or support with this. We work with people all the time, right? And I'm constantly having these conversations. And I want to work with more individuals who are motivated in this area of learning. I want to work with more women, because I know men come to me and they're like, look, I need A, B, and C, boom. Like they're a little bit more decisive, but I want more women to step up and to come to me about some of these things that they're, trying to troubleshoot in their business. Because even if you go to TeeCee first, because I'm going to send you to TeeCee, but even if you go to TeeCee first, here's the thing. A lot of times she's going to be smacking you back over to me, because she's going to say, you don't know what you want. You don't know what you're doing. And I can't send anything up off of air, right? Like you have to understand your concept, your idea, your core values. And once I send that strategy over to TeeCee, she's like, okay, boom, I know what to do. But I want to make sure that, if you're a woman and you really are in this place where you're like either growing your business and you want to expand it, or want to start a business and be that big brand, then I want you to reach out to me. And myself and TeeCee, we work together on several projects. But if you just need someone to just do a sales funnel and you're like, I know exactly what I want, I know exactly what I do, and you have a business plan and you have a marketing strategy, I want you to go ahead and reach over to TeeCee. TeeCee, how can they reach out to you?
So you can either reach out to me on Facebook here, just DM me on Facebook Messenger, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. Or let's just do this. You can send me an email to info@tcbusinesssolutions.com. It's super easy, right? The most important thing, or just comments here, right here, where you are, wherever you are, just send a comment, right? TC, and I will definitely reach out to you. Super easy. I wanted to say something, but because we need Allegra um, to pack up, because she literally needs to go like ASAP, I'm going to record the video and I'm going to post it, because this thought is in my heart. And next week we're going to talk about Dunkin Donuts. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about that as well. Allegra be like already packing. She's like, TC, I'm gone.
Listen, hubby is already in the car, got the stuff packed, got the bags packed and everything. And here's one of the things that I love too, because we get to, really be in the space of, controlling our time. And in business, one of the things that I do want to say, because TeeCee had her vacation last week, I'll catch up and see how that was for TeeCee. But even with us having businesses for so many years, I've been in business for 16 plus years. Godly, it's way more than that. I don't even know anymore. The point is that TeeCee and I have been in business for a while, and we know that even with having a business, you have to have your stopping points and you have to take your time off, right? Take your vacations. We had someone on a live say that she didn't have a vacation for 6 years. I don't care if you're in a 9 to 5. I don't even care if you don't have a job. Take a vacation, because there's something about changing your environment and changing your mindset around what you're already thinking and feeling and doing, that is going to help you push your business even further than where you were before. So I just wanted to leave with that note, TeeCee. But y'all reach out to her, put it in the comments. And if you, don't want to waste her time because you don't have that business plan or that marketing strategy, reach out to me and I'll hook you up. All right. We got to go. Y'all have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.